On the middle Burgundy about 28 August, middle Burgundy about.
What you just saw now is Aba in 2021, underwater. And that is a marketplace, as it is in that place, which is Nigerian and all the other places in between. What is the problem? Yes, we can blame the governors for not doing so well. They are going to receive a shock in the minutes that follow now to tell you that it was programmed to be so by the wicked and vicious Nigerian system that decided to punish Aba for the role of Aba in the dismantling of colonial era occupation of Nigeria. You remember the Aba women riot of 1929 that triggered the coal miners' strike and all kinds of other things that now forced the British to retreat. Aba has never been forgiven. And it's not only Aba. The system we're dealing with, for those who may be pretending not to know why where the owners of the land in this alliance are saying that they cannot continue in the union of death that Nigeria has become for them. It will shock you to realize that Aba was deliberately targeted to be put under for a deluge, to be flooded into decay. I'll go from Aba to the other parts of the country so that we can see the monster we are dealing with in real, in its true colors. Now, the water you saw there, those of us who have gone to Port Harcourt from the expressway that comes from Enugu, the stretch that passes Aba is to your left as you go towards Port Harcourt, all the way to where you find the railway crossing where they sell spare parts next door. From the point in Osisioma, where the Aba urban center began on that expressway, at the time that expressway was being constructed by the federal government of Nigeria, it was known to them, because surveys were done, it was known to them that all the water, rainwater and all kinds of other waters that gather in Aba is evacuated naturally through streams, all kinds of water channels that go on the right-hand side of that same express in that Aba stretch is where you begin to see Eche and all the moving bodies of water that discharge into the Atlantic Ocean. Now, at the time the express was being constructed, it was elevated well above the ground level in that area because of the soil type. And having been so elevated, it was the plan to flood Aba down into destruction that made them not to put culverts that would take the water in their natural movement towards the ocean, to pass under that expressway. And having blocked that natural movement of water, it took only one rainy season for Aba to come underwater, so that the Port Harcourt Road, the one we call Ndiegoro, and all kinds of other things, just sprang up. And that was what made Sam Mbakwe of blessed memory to go crying, to go. He wept when he went to tell Shagari to seek for help, because it was well above the means of the state. The entire Port Harcourt Road came to where storage buildings, the ground floors of storage buildings were underwater for almost 3 years running, the stretch of that Port Harcourt Road. And so it was a deliberate, there's no solution anybody is going to find for what used to be the commercial capital of West Africa, that Aba had always been. no solution to the water deluge, to the thing that we see, in the kind of thing you see in this video that has spread, and that city is in rot. It is that they have just told us the source of the problem. The water was locked in deliberately by the operators of the Nigerian system and their British sponsors, who are determined to bring about to such level of degradation that we could call destruction. And unless we rise up unless we understand that that is the case, every other thing, all Igbo people across the world should pay attention to this and know that this is the level of destruction that we are living with. We go from there to the erosion sites scattered all over the east, over 400. Those erosions did not, our soil did not suddenly go bad. It was because in course of the Biafran War, there was a determination to degrade the infrastructure in the Biafra. And so B-52 bombs were used to target, places where craters were created, to just make it impossible for people to move around. And in creating those craters, it took only one rainy season because the British that built the roads before then knew exactly where they supported, the road in one place or the other. They took out all those supports and erosion just came and washed off progressively, so that the budget of those states since after those erosion sites became something that could not, even if you multiply their budgets by 10, it won't be able to take the kind of devastation that has happened. It was man-made. And the proof of it is a report that came from, it was in Punch newspaper a few years back, a report that was done by Nigerian Institute of Environment or something, one of these institutes that commissioned its research to why the erosions in the east were in that number and in the magnitude they present. And so we go from that eastern part. It's not only in the east. In the Yoruba side, when the Caliphate decided to move the capital of Nigeria to Abuja, the Yoruba saw the pace at which it was being done was something of concern to Yoruba intelligence, and they began to use that reluctance to move at the pace the Caliphate wanted to move. And after some bit of pushing and pulling, the federal government of the time then decided to pull off electricity from all the federal government facilities in Lagos. And so I'm sure most of us who knew the federal secretariat in Ikoyi will be wondering why such edifices, it's not one building, it's several buildings, such edifices will be allowed to rot and decay. It started by pulling off electricity. How are you going to get to the 5th and 10th floor if there was no lift working? If there was darkness, most of the offices were designed to work with electricity 24 hours. And then it became reason why the federal secretariat and all the federal government buildings in Lagos, went into the decay we saw. And it compelled those civil servants, some just resigned, those who had other things they could begin to do with their time. The ones who didn't resign were compelled to now go to Abuja. In the Abuja, there was nowhere no facility to receive them in terms of both office and house. They had to hang in here and there to do whatever they were doing for that federal government. And we saw the thing that became notorious as Abuja marriage, where women who had to hang just wherever ended up with men who also, and men hanging out with just where will you sleep? And so many, 3/4 of the marriages, let those who can find out begin to find out from those who went in into those journeys at that time. 3/4 of the marriages of people who are from this southern part, particularly the Yorubas, those who went from that Lagos federal capital that served as Nigeria's seat of power for so many years. All of them, 3/4 of their marriages collapsed on account of this wickedness of Nigeria. So they destroyed the fabric of society in trying to enforce their way. But more importantly, because how do you quantify the social destruction? we saw when, as a governor of Lagos, the Fashola that is now minister on the other side, the people who are ministers of work in Nigeria, who were being invited to come to do something or the other. You saw how our Papa ended up in the degradation that has consumed it now. You know, just because Nigeria had to do things, the caliphate had to do their things in their own ways to achieve their own objectives. You know, they were trying to build inland ports in Kano and Baru and all kinds of places. You know, throwing all kinds of warped logic, reverse logic for how it will be better done. And you see the fellow they call Amechi justifying all of it because he's now the one in charge. But the whole thing was to degrade one place in order to uplift the other, to create, to justify the need for the senseless decision to leave the body of water and go and build ports they call inland. Yes, all kinds of economic, justifications could be thrown around for how things can now. You create the bottleneck, and you want to convince me that it's better to take it by rail into some hinterland, but to create the bottleneck at the water port. And so Lagos, with all of what used to be, what should have been, vast economic assets, the federal government of Nigeria had to degrade them to the point we have seen now in order to create justification for the alternatives they were throwing at us across all kinds of places. In the Federal Capital Territory itself, we saw the Gwari owners of Abuja. We are now going to the Middle Belt to tell us that this same monster, this same caliphate monster, is upon all of us equally, in equal measure of wickedness. In the owners of Abuja, the indigenous owners of Abuja are the Gwari people. The Gwari people were first split into 5 states, in which they are minority in the Nasarawa, minority in Kaduna, minority in all the surrounding states to the Federal Capital Territory. And they were particularly targeted to be removed from the scheme of things so that they don't rise up to begin to question what happened to their ancestral land. You can't imagine that the compensation that was supposed to be paid to them at the time that land was taken, 2 point something, almost 2.8 billion, no less than 2.5 billion naira of the time. And as at that time, it was almost $4 to 1 naira. So if we're talking about 2.8 in naira, we're talking of over anything between 12 and 15 billion dollars that was supposed to be the compensation to resettle these people in some way to resume their life. But that compensation was pulled out of the system and shared by those who were in charge of dealing with all kinds of things. Let us look at those dates, and find out from those who are still alive among the people who presided over that wickedness of the Nigerian state, particularly the head slave called Obasanjo. He was very much in the know of what transpired concerning that matter in that period. And those people were not paid. The money was pulled out of treasury. The people were impoverished and deliberately relegated and removed from being in policy beltways of Nigeria. And therefore, they are now like spectators, very intimidated spectators, watching what used to be their land, become a sprawling, city, with all kinds of possibilities that exclude them effectively because of the level of exclusion intended by the system. In that case, it was the human beings that were degraded to the point of not being able to participate. And so when people see that, when people continue to express surprise that people are so determined to dismantle this wickedness called Nigeria, let them know that those who have been at the receiving end of that wickedness, that are in the know of all of these things that have been done by the system to destroy in order to take over, to annex, to destroy a people, to degrade their environment and their lives in order to be able to weaken them and conquer them and annex them into what could become a at the same time you are doing this, you are building railways and refineries and highways to Niger Republic. It will appear that some people now think that others have become so stupid as not to be able to reason. These are the things going on. And these are some of the reasons, unspoken reasons, for people saying they are fed up with the union of death Nigeria has become for them.
All right, I am posting this link to this video here so that you can watch again and get the information that you need so that we can move